go now.
So
Okay, I'm ready.
yeah, because it went into restart by his own only.
Mm-hmm.
He saw some problem.
No, it's fine.
Yeah,
Everything's fine.
yeah. Okay. Observes the individual and measures variables of interest. Variables of interest.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, I've given an example of it in the previous class that we had seen. We can measure height, weight, personality of an individual. So it is a variable of interest. Means there are what you'll say various variables that we can measure of an individual when we are recording a data. So that's known as observational study. Observes the individual and measures the variable of interest. And one point he has given that, but does not attempt to influence the response. But import this is important, but does not attempt to influence the response. Means what does this mean? That it will by what you'll say, it will not influence the response by itself. Means not comment about the variables that we are measuring, but just observe the individual and measure it. Okay, so this was an example we had seen yesterday, but we had not discussed, so we'll discuss it today. So observational study versus experiments. Is taking a vitamin D supplement good for you? Hundreds of observational
Yeah.
studies have yeah, hundreds of observational studies have looked at the relationship between vitamin D concentration in a person's blood and various health outcomes. So generally, we are measuring the relationship between vitamin D consumption and
Uh,
vitamin
can you
D
give me one
concentration.
minute?
Yeah,
Can you give me 1 minute real quick?
yeah.
Okay, I'm back.
So generally, in this example, we'll see measure the relationship between in this example generally we'll measure the relationship between
Yep.
vitamin D vitamin D concentration in the body or consumption, you can say concentration or consumption by an individual, and
Mm-hmm.
diabetes factor. Yeah, and diabetes. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there is a table in the observational study involving vitamin D and diabetes, the exploratory variable. So I think we have seen the no, we have not seen the definition of exploratory variable and response variable. In this
Mm-hmm.
chapter, yes, sure, we have seen an exploratory variable and response variable definition in the previous chapters. So in the observational studies involving vitamin D and diabetes, the exploratory variable is vitamin D concentration in the blood, and the response variable is the diabetes status, whether or not the person developed diabetes. So what is a
Yeah.
response variable? A response variable measures an outcome of a study. We know that it is a predictory variable, but it generally refers to an output of the study. Yes or no? Response variable
Mm-hmm.
generally it is a measures of outcome. An explanatory variable may help to explain or predict changes in the response variable. So explanatory variable is a term, generally what it is. Here he is telling that vitamin D will be, diabetes will be response. We'll see whether a person with a high concentration or low concentration will have diabetes or not. Okay, and the vitamin D is the explanatory variable. Yeah, explanatory variable. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, it was very difficult to show. Here you can look at a table. Unfortunately, it was
Mm-hmm.
very difficult to show that taking vitamin D causes a low risk of diabetes. Means whether a person with high concentration of vitamin D will have low risk of diabetes using an observational study. So this is an observational study which they have given in this table. So it is very difficult to comment on it. As shown in the table, there are many possible differences between the group of people with high vitamin D concentration and the group of people with low vitamin D concentration. Any of these differences could be causing the difference in diabetes risk between the two groups of people. Means what he is trying to say, the table that he has drawn, click on it. The sister is also fasting or what?
Mm-hmm. No, she is not. She is not fasting. She eats.
What age? What is her age?
Fasted yesterday.
You fasted yesterday, mashallah. Very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let
Mm-hmm.
your brother study. What is her name?
The name is the vitamin D concentration.
No, your sister's name.
Oh, that Zoya.
Zoya, mashallah. Zoya, let your brother study. Okay.
Yeah, he
So,
said let me study.
so vitamin D
Okay.
concentration. So vitamin D concentration, as we know, it is an explanatory variable. Okay. So explanatory variable, there are two, that high vitamin D concentration and low vitamin D concentration. We have distributed into two. So quality of diet, and we have seen various attributes. See, we are measuring variables of interest. Yes or no? Of the explanatory variable.
Mm-hmm.
These are all the variables. These all shifted. These all are the variables of interest of an individual,
Mm-hmm.
yes or no? So for suppose we have
Yeah.
taken two individuals, for or we have taken two groups of individuals with this and with group 2 like this. So quality of diet, better diet, high vitamin D concentration, more exercise, more likely to take other vitamins, and there are different factors. Here in low vitamin D concentration, worse diet, less exercise, and less likely to take other vitamins. So what it is, that less likely to have diabetes. We cannot comment that it will have no diabetes. We directly cannot tell that it will have no diabetes, and we directly cannot tell that it will, yes, he will have diabetes. We cannot say this,
Mm-hmm.
but he is giving a more what you may say general answer, that's less likely to have diabetes and more likely to have diabetes. So this was the thing, that in an observational study we directly cannot comment about the, what you will say, response variable. Yes or no? We cannot comment about the
Mm-hmm.
response variable. That is the thing in an observational study. So for example, it is possible that people who have healthier diets eat lots of food that are high in vitamin D. Likewise, it is possible that people with healthier diets are less likely to develop diabetes. Vitamin D concentration may not have anything to do with diabetes status. So we can see that vitamin D concentration or consumption does not have, means there is no relationship. That the thing that we have studied earlier means that there is no relationship. Vitamin D concentration does not have anything to do with risk of diabetes. I'll write down risk of diabetes. Risk of diabetes. Anything to do with risk of diabetes. So this thing, that, see, vitamin D concentration may not have anything to do with diabetes status, even though there is an association between the two variables, but also there is an association with the variables, that in this case we say there is co-founding between vitamin D concentration and diet, because we cannot tell which variable is causing the change in diabetes status. So vitamin D concentration does not have anything to do with risk of diabetes, but there is some association. There is some association. We can see an association. How I'll explain? Association. How the association was here. When there is high vitamin D, low risk of diabetes we can see. Less likely you can see. Okay, and when there is low vitamin D, we can see high risk of what you'll say, high risk of diabetes. Low vitamin D, LVD, and high vitamin D. That's the thing. So there is a, but it does not have anything to do with diabetes. There is a thing. If I'll say that consumption of sugar by an individual, and what you'll say, then diabetes, risk of diabetes, then you can say yes, there is an what you'll say a relation between two of them. But here there is no relation between two of them, but also there is an association between them. This is called as co-founding. This is called as co-founding. That's called co-founding. So that was co-founding. So now co-founding. So co-founding occurs when two variables are associated in such a way that their effects on a response variable cannot be distinguished from each other. Means if something is affecting the response variable, we cannot distinguish from each other that it is affecting it or not affecting it. Is it clear? I'll write it down. If there is, what we can state is that co-founding occurs when two variables are associated in such a way that their effects on a response variable cannot be distinguished from each other. On response variable, and we cannot. I'll write in a reverse active passive terms. Response variable and cannot be distinguished but there is some association between them. Means for example, I'll increase the consumption. I'll increase consumption of vitamin D. So can we see a drastic drop? No, we cannot see a drop in the diabetes status of a person. So that this is the thing, that the response variable will be the same. For example, the diabetes was, for example, 90 for mid vitamin D, and we have increased vitamin D in our diet for 1 month, but also diabetes remain 90 only. The person is healthy, but there is no change in the response variable. So if there is an effect on the response variable and cannot be distinguished, but there is association, when there is some association, then it is known as co-founding. Then it is known as co-founding. That is the thing, co-founding. Got it, Zaid? With an example of that? Yeah, good. Co-founding, I've given an example.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Okay.
My sister's gone.
Your mom is not there at home, or what?
No, she's not home right now.
So that's the reason she's troubling you, yeah. But there is what
Yes.
you enjoy when your sister's troubling you, yeah. If you are
Yeah.
asked to identify a possible co-founding variable in a given setting, you are expected to explain how the variable you choose. One is associated with the explanatory variable, and two is associated with the response variable. So likewise, because sun exposure increases vitamin D concentration, it is possible that people who exercise a lot outside have higher concentration of vitamin D. If people who exercise a lot are also less likely to get diabetes, then amount of exercise and vitamin D concentration are co-founded. Yes, this is a good term. I'll take it on my board.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's for my biology, my stats thing.
Why do you have pictures?
Let's show. I'll bet that. Okay.
So it is possible that people who exercise a lot, so the consumption of the concentration of vitamin D also depends upon exercise also. So exercise a lot outside, the higher concentration of exercise a lot outside have higher concentration. The people who exercise
Yeah,
a
I'm back.
lot outside will have a higher
Mhm.
concentration of vitamin D. So if people who exercise a lot are also less likely, so they also have a less likely risk to get diabetes. Then amount of exercise and vitamin D, amount of exercise, amount of exercise and vitamin D concentration are co-founded because they does not have an effect on the change in the response variable, but there is some association between them. We can't say which variable is the cause of the smaller diabetes risks. In other words, exercise is co-founding variable because it is related to both vitamin D concentration and diabetes status. Yes. So the co-founding variable we have to think of, that's the exercise is a co-founding variable because exercising is affecting vitamin D as well as exercising is affecting diabetes status also. That's the reason. Is it clear? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Are you
It's
able
better
to
than
study?
math,
Or
right?
else I'll take it afterwards, the class.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
you are okay. Okay, come on, read this
Good
example.
9 out of 9.
Mhm. Yep. Mhm.
Just
Hmm. Hmm.
did you draw this?
Okay. So here in this problem, in a study of more than 4,700 children, researchers from Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center found that those children whose
Yeah.
mothers smoked during pregnancy were more than twice as likely to develop ADHD. It is a disease, I think, as children whose mothers have not smoked. So explain how co-founding makes it unreasonable to conclude that a mother smoking during pregnancy causes an increase in the risk of ADHD in her children based on the study. So what you can say, generally you have seen that you have to just give that different factors can also affect the health of the risk of ADHD in the children. Yes or no? Likewise, mother's diet
Mhm.
can affect the risk of ADHD. Mother is exercising during the pregnancy or not, taking proper diet or not, in which environment she is living in, what is the population, yeah, pollution risk there can be a different factor. So it is possible that mothers who smoke during pregnancy were also more likely to have the unhealthy diets. If people with unhealthy diets are also more likely to have children with ADHD, see, you can give any one reason. I've given you multiple reasons, 2 to 3. Then it could be that unhealthy diets cause increase in ADHD risk, not smoking. Therefore, it is co-founding. Yes or no? There is an association between
Yeah.
what you will say smoking of cigarettes and getting the risk of ADHD. But there may be the cause of diet, the cause of exercise, the cause of pollution in that area. There can be different factors that can be affecting. But there is some association, but the response of ADHD, the response of cigarette is not affecting ADHD. That's the reason. Is it clear, Zaid?
Mhm.
Okay, so now we come on to this. So observational studies of the effect of an exploratory variable on a response variable often fail because co-founding between the exploratory variable and one or the more other variable. In contrast to observational study, experiments don't just observe individuals or ask them questions. So there is a difference. I've told you, observation means just you are sitting behind, what you may say, you can describe as sitting behind and seeing an individual. What response does he give to a specific task? So that's called an observation. But an experiment is in contrast to observational study. Experiments don't just observe individuals or ask them questions, they actively impose some treatment to measure the response. Experiment can answer question like, does aspirin reduce the chance of a heart attack? And can yoga helps dog live longer? This is the same difference, right? When we have seen the regression line or you have seen the scatter plot. Scatter plot cannot predict. but the regression line can predict. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Scatter line just shows the scatter plot just shows the association between the variables, but he cannot predict the value. But for predicting the value, we have to draw the regression line, and the best regression line was least square regression line. And for after least square
Mm-hmm.
regression line, we have seen different transformation of it. Likewise, in this also, there are two things: observational study,
Mm-hmm.
and the second one was experiment. So what's an experiment? In this, we just observe. We just observe. Or second thing, or collect the data by questioning the individual. Questioning the individual. But what's in this experiment? We generally and rigorously implement the implement things on the individual. So you may read an article likewise that in Japan students were taken two group of students were studied or done an experiment on them, that students who sleep or take a nap of 15 minutes and learned something, and second group who didn't take a nap and learned something, whose what you will say learning power was better. So this is an experiment. What we have taken two groups of students and separated them, that two, for suppose for a first group we have given them a 15 minutes nap, and for the second group we have not given the nap and given the same context to learn. But you may say there is a significant difference between them. So this study, what we have done, we have not observed them, but we have done an experiment on them. Yes or no, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So determine if taking vitamin D actually causes a reduction in diabetes risk, researchers in Norway performed an experiment. The researchers randomly assigned 500 people with pre-diabetes to either take a high dose of vitamin D or to take a placebo, a pill that looked exactly like the vitamin D supplement but contained no active ingredient. After 5 years, about 40% of the people in each group were diagnosed with diabetes. In other words, the association between vitamin D concentration and diabetes status disappeared when comparing two groups that were roughly the same to begin with. So now the next definition is placebo. How you pronounce it, Zaid?
Placebo.
Placebo. Okay, I'll pronounce it placebo. Okay, placebo. A placebo is a treatment that has no active ingredient but is otherwise like other treatments. So it is not a specific treatment, but it is like other treatments. So I'll write down placebo. What is placebo? So it is a treatment that has no active ingredients. A treatment,
No, wait, actually say your
a treatment with no active ingredients with no active ingredients, but is otherwise like other treatments, but is otherwise like other treatments. So we'll read the above context once again. So see, the researchers randomly assigned 500 people here. The researchers assigned 500 people with pre-diabetes to either take a high dose of
That's
vitamin
mine.
or to take a
Mm-hmm.
placebo. Placebo means
Oh,
to a
Yeah.
group of people they had given vitamin D
see?
tablets, and to another group they have given placebo. Placebo means a simple pill with no
Mm-hmm.
active ingredients. Active ingredients means they will not have the ingredients to kill diabetes or prevent diabetes. Likewise, a pill that look exactly like vitamin D but supplement but not contain active ingredients. So that's placebo. Is it clear that placebo?
Mm-hmm.
It's just what you may say. They are just training the mind that you are being giving medicine to prevent diabetes. Just they are training the mind of the individual that you are getting medicine. So will it affect or not? They are just seeing. That's the thing. The experiment in Norway avoided co-founding by letting chance decide who took vitamin D and who didn't. That way, people with healthier diets were split about evenly between the two groups. So, are people who exercise a lot and people who take other vitamins. When our goal is to understand cause and effect, experiments are the only source of fully convincing data. For this reason, the distinction between observational study and experiment is one of the most important in statistics. So that's the thing. So when observational study is there are different factors that are affecting the data likewise, but in the observational study, but in experiments they do not. So that's the thing. Come on, read this. Eh?
Mhm. Okay. Can you give me 1 minute real quick?
Yeah. You can.
Okay, I'm back.
Just okay, Zaid, just give me 5 minutes. Till then, you do this question, okay?
All right, got it. Okay, so the first one is experimental, and the second one is observational study. Hello? You still there? Hello? Hello?
Okay, thank you, Zaid, for waiting. As I went to the
Yeah,
washroom there and I required more time. Sorry for the delay. Okay. So in
yeah.
each of the following settings, identify the exploratory and response variable, then determine if each is an experiment or an observational study. So come on, tell me what is A?
Here is observational.
Very good, good. Yes. So what is an exploratory and response variables?
The
Good.
explanatory variable is the marriage thing, the social media, how social media affects
Yes, yes.
marriage.
Social media use will be the explanatory variable, and the satisfaction with their marriage will be the
Mm-hmm.
response variable. Yes or no?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Or we
basically
can
that.
say that exploratory variable with the satisfaction with their marriage, it can be, yes, there will be a good association between satisfaction with their marriage. It can be an exploratory variable, and social media use can be a response variable, because looking in the manner that the person who is not satisfied with his marriage will be more addicted towards the towards the things that are of no use. So of the heavy social media users, 32% had thought seriously about leaving their spouse. Only 16% of non-social media users have thought seriously about leaving their spouse. So, okay, so what is B? It is an observation study or what?
It's experiment.
Yeah, it is an experiment. So, okay, we'll go. See, A is exploratory variable, frequency of social media use. Yes, I've told you. And response variable will be marital satisfaction. Okay, this is an observation. Okay, explanatory variable is whether or not financial incentives are given, and response variable amount of weight loss. This is an experiment because researchers gave some volunteers financial incentive and did not give financial incentive to the other volunteers. Correct. Yes. Good. So this is an example you can try. Okay. Okay. The
Mhm.
language of experiments. So we'll start this tomorrow. Is it clear, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Chalo. Bye. Assalamu alaikum.
Huh?
And
But
take
now,
care. Yeah. Now
don't
you
you
want.
think we should do like 5 more minutes of it?
Okay. 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 We'll do it. Okay. So we'll discuss this. Does reducing screen
Huh?
brightness increases battery life in laptop computers? To find out, researchers obtained 30 new laptops of the same brand. They choose 15 of the computers at random and adjusted their screens to the brightest setting. The other 15 laptop screen were left at the default setting, moderate brightness. Researchers then measured how long each machine's battery lasted. Was this an observational study or an experiment? Very clear. Tell me, come on. Is this an
I
observational study or an
believe
experiment?
it is it's experiment.
Yes,
No, no,
because
no, no.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
it
it will
is an
be an experiment.
experiment because they assign it.
Yeah, yeah, correct, correct. Yes. So question 2 to 4 refer to the following setting. Does eating dinner with their families improve students' academic performance? According to an ABC News article, see, teenagers who eat with their families at least 5 times a week are more likely to get better grades in school. This finding was based on the sample survey conducted by researchers at Columbia University.
Mhm.
Okay, so was this an observational study or an experiment? What it will be, Zaid? Come on,
I
read it.
think it's gonna be. I didn't just say it's an experiment.
Yes, it
No,
will be an
no, 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 no.
observational
Yeah,
study because it is an article in
yeah,
the newspaper. Yes or no?
yeah. Because so yeah, this one is gonna be an observational
Correct.
study.
So what are the explanatory and response variable?
Explanatory variable is the teenagers,
Huh.
and the response variable is the eating habits.
No, the explanatory variable with the teenagers eating 5 times a day, and the response
Oh yeah,
variable will getting a better grades in school. Yes or no? You're not reading
yeah.
it correctly. Yeah.
That
So explain
I
clearly why
think.
such a study cannot establish a cause and effect relationship. Suggest a variable that may be co-founded with whether families eat dinner together or not. So you can do this question on. So we'll go on to the next topic. I'll just give you an introduction of it. So the language of
Mhm.
experiments. An experiment is a statistical study in which we actually do something. I've told you, experiment is generally we are doing on the ground level, things on the ground level, but not just commenting on it to people. Something to people, animals, or objects. The experimental unit or subjects to observe the response. Treatment and experimental unit and subjects. A specific condition applied to the individual in an experiment is called as a treatment. So when we are measuring something, uh, avoiding something, or giving some special thing to an individual is called as a treatment. If an experiment has several explanatory variables, a treatment is a combination of specific values of these variables. An experimental unit is the object to which the treatment is randomly assigned. Means the individual, you can say generally. When the experiment units are human beings, they are often called subjects. See, when the experimental units are human beings, when the individual means an experimental unit is the object to which a treatment is randomly assigned. Means some treatment is given to a thing, it is called as an experimental unit. And when an experimental unit becomes an human being, they are often called as subjects about which we are talking for. Is it clear, Zaid?
Mhm.
So the best way to learn the language of experiment means these are all the terminologies of experiment. So the best way to learn it is to practice using it. We discuss different example and all. So come on, read this and this will be our class. Come on, read it.
The treatments are. The treatments are the regular screening. The amount of regular screening they have.
Yeah, so malaria causes hundreds of thousands of deaths each year, with many of the victims being children. With will regularly screening children for the malaria parasite and treating those who test positive reduce the proportion of children who develop the disease. Researchers worked with children in 101 schools in Kenya, randomly assigned half of the schools to receive regular screening and follow up the treatments, and remaining schools to receive no regular screening. Children at all 101 schools were tested for malaria at the end of the study. Identify the treatments and the experimental units in this experiment. So, what is the treatment? The treatment is the screening, yes or no? So, that this experiment
Mhm.
compares two treatments, regular screening and follow up treatments, and no regular screening. So, the experimental units are 101 school in the Kenya. Is it clear? It was easy. There were two
Yeah, it
treatments,
was easy.
regular screening and follow up treatments, and No regular screening means you can generally see distinguish or differentiate between as one a group of children in all the schools. A part of children were giving screening and the other were not. So what was the study? And we were studying on 101 school, so there were the experimental units. Is it clear, Zaid?
Yeah.
Okay, so note that the experimental units are the school, not the students. Yes, that's the reason we have not termed as subjects. The decision about who to screen was made school by school, not student by student. All students at the same school received the same treatment. That's the reason they didn't become the subject. In the malaria experiment, there were one explanatory variable, screening status. In other experiments, there are multiple explanatory variables. Sometimes these explanatory variables are called factors. In an experiment with multiple factors, the treatment are formed using these various levels of each of the factors. When there is only one factor, the level are equivalent to the treatments. So there are factors and level. In an experiment, a factor is an explanatory variable that is manipulated and may cause change in the response variable. The different values of a factor are called as levels. So it is a what you will say a scale. Factor is a scale. As we will change the factor, the factor, they will affect the response variable, and the levels
Mm-hmm.
or the stages of the factor are called as levels. This was the thing. Now
Yeah.
this is an quick example. You can look as a homework. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we are left with comparison, then control group. Simple thing is there, all the things. Just you need to I have told you in this chapter it is very simple. Not just you have to remember the definition, so revise and learn it as I'm teaching it. Note it down in your notebook, make your own notes, so it will be very good for you. Okay, and inshallah this
Yeah.
Saturday you will give the second test based on chapter 2. I have not prepared the test paper yet, so I have not forwarded it. So I'll prepare it inshallah in a couple of days and propagate to you on Saturday. And Saturday inshallah we'll have two class. Okay, one in the morning and one in the evening. As we are going through, the same
Yeah.
time will be for the evening, that's 5:40 p.m. And in the morning I'll propagate you the time. I will discuss it tomorrow and I'll tell you. Okay, is it clear?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Zaid, you can leave. That was good. And take care of your
Mm-hmm.
little sister.
Yeah. Well.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Tell her also the salam, Zoya.
Yeah. Well.